He called me cold, just because I didn't want to sleep with his mother anymore. Sounds absurd, right? But that's the reason my marriage fell apart. I'm Emily, 31, and if someone had told me that my mother-in-law would be the reason I had to sleep in a separate room, I would have laughed. Until it actually happened. It all started as a small favor. His mom, Margaret, needed a few days to stay with us after losing her apartment in Boston. I thought she just needed kindness. But she didn't come to heal. She came to take over. Within 3 months, our little house in Massachusetts turned into a battlefield, filled with her perfume, her criticisms, and the soft power of a woman who refused to age quietly. Until the night I opened my bedroom door and found her lying in my bed, next to my husband. That was the moment I realized I wasn't a wife anymore. I was just a guest who'd overstayed her welcome. I didn't hate my mother-in-law. Margaret could be charming in small doses. She had this booming laugh, wore emerald dresses that made everyone look twice, and called every drink too bitter for love. The first few weeks, I tried to be kind. I made her coffee, bought her favorite sugar-free waffles. But kindness has an expiration date. She rearranged my kitchen on day 4, threw away my mug because it looked sad, and told me, "Sweetheart, this coffee tastes like a failing marriage." Mark, my husband, just laughed. Mom's joking. But when jokes repeat, they stop being funny. We had 2 bedrooms, one for us, one for my writing. Margaret called it the empty room and moved her things in. When I reminded her it was my workspace, she smiled. A woman shouldn't hide behind a desk all day. Family first, dear. Mark said nothing. That silence said everything. From that day, I knew this wasn't my home anymore. It was hers. One evening, I came home and found her in my bedroom folding our sheets. On the nightstand lay my journal, open. She looked up casually. "You left it out." "I just wanted to make sure you're not too sad." I froze. My throat burned. Mark walked in, and instead of shock, he said, "What did you write that worried her?" I didn't answer. The next day, I bought a lock for my drawer. But locks don't stop people like Margaret. She started doing my laundry, helping out, but somehow my favorite blouse disappeared. Each act alone looked innocent. Together, they felt like erasure. At night, I'd hear her slippers pacing the hallway, stopping right outside my door, just standing there. I never slept again until dawn. Every marriage has invisible boundaries, until someone tears them down. By month 2, I worked from home to avoid her. Each morning, as I opened my laptop, she'd say, "You plan to keep that imaginary job forever? Real women go outside and earn real money." I'd smile weakly. The words sank deeper each time. Evenings, she'd claim the couch, crank the TV to full volume. "This house is too quiet. Noise keeps it alive." She'd say it while drowning out my thoughts. One night I asked Mark softly, "How long is she staying?" "Don't say that," he sighed. "She's fragile." "Can't you be supportive?" Supportive. That word looped in my mind all night, like a mosquito buzzing in the dark. At dawn, I moved a blanket to the sofa. Not out of anger, out of oxygen. When Mark saw me there the next morning, he frowned. "You're being dramatic." I didn't answer. But when I glanced down the hall, Margaret stood there, holding her tea, smiling. Like she'd finally won. That night, rain hit the roof like a heartbeat, heavy, relentless. I came in from work to find Margaret sitting on my side of the bed, knitting. Mark was scrolling through his phone. "It's cold in my room," she said. "I'll stay here tonight." I blinked. "And me?" "You can use the couch," Mark replied quietly. I don't remember leaving the room. Only the sound of rain, the scent of her perfume, the way the house suddenly felt like someone else's. At 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling from the sofa, I realized I'd been sleeping alone for months, just not literally. The next morning, I told Mark, "I'm going to sleep separately. I need space." He snapped, "So you're choosing comfort over my mother's health?" "No," I said. "I'm choosing not to lose my mind." That night, I moved my things into my old writing room. Outside, their laughter floated through the walls. I'd never felt so invisible. By month 3, I started documenting things. Day 2, she threw away my notebooks for clutter. Day 5, she served dinner at 5 p.m., saying grown-ups eat early. Day 8. I heard her whisper to Mark in the kitchen, "She's not built for family." Writers never are. Mark's silence screamed louder than her words. That evening, she walked into my office mid-meeting. "You should quit this job. The house needs a real woman's touch." "Excuse me? If you don't want to lose your husband, start acting like a wife." I stepped outside into the cold October air, lit a cigarette I hadn't touched in years. Mark followed, frowning. "You're smoking again? And you're still letting her sleep in our bed?" He froze. "Don't make me choose." "You already have," I whispered. Thursday evening. The house was quiet, suspiciously quiet. I opened the bedroom door. Margaret sat at my desk, staring at my laptop. "You really are ungrateful," she said. On the screen, my private digital journal. "You read that? If it's private, lock it better." Mark walked in mid-argument. "What's happening?" "She accused me of invading her privacy," Margaret whimpered. Mark frowned at me. "Emily, you can't keep pushing everyone away." "Everyone?" "You mean her." Silence. "You're overreacting. And you're pretending this is normal." Margaret sighed theatrically. "Poor thing. So lonely." Then she left, victorious. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at our wedding photo turned face down. I realized marriage doesn't die from betrayal. It dies from silence. It was mid-November when I found the letter. Neat handwriting, no return name. "I'm sorry if my presence makes you uncomfortable, but you owe my son a peaceful home. He almost ended his life the last time you left." No signature, but I knew that voice. I hadn't left, not really. I'd gone to my mother's for a few days after a fight. Mark never told her that. How did she know? That night I asked him, "Did you tell her anything about that week?" "Just that you were stressed." "Why?" I didn't answer. But I started checking my accounts and found a new login under our Wi-Fi. Someone had been reading everything. When everyone slept, I crept into the living room. Margaret's laptop sat on the coffee table. Password: Mark's birthday. Inside, folders labeled bills, photos, Emily. My hands trembled. The folder contained screenshots from my Facebook, my messages with my mother, even drafts of my writing. And one word file: "She's fragile. If she feels inadequate, Mark will protect me. Writers are unstable. Just push gently." I printed the file. The next morning, I laid it beside her coffee cup. "I found this," I said. She barely looked. "You're good at snooping." "But knowing too much can hurt, dear." Mark entered. She turned to him, eyes wet. "She's been spying on me, honey." He hesitated, then sided with her. "You can't keep accusing people." "She invaded my life, Mark. You're making everything worse." I grabbed my coat, heart pounding. "You're right," I said, "because everything's already broken." I drove to Salem, 2 hours north where my mother lived. Halfway there, I pulled over and texted Mark. "I don't want a divorce, but I can't live like this." No reply. A week later, "Maybe we need time apart." Time apart. That's all I'd been asking for, just to breathe. When I returned to pack my things, the house was empty. No perfume, no noise. Only a note: "Don't worry about Mom. She's gone back to Boston. I need time." I sat on the sofa, my old bed. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of losing him. I was afraid of losing myself. A week later, my phone rang at 1 a.m. "Mark, Mom's in the hospital," he said. "She passed out at Greg's." "Who's Greg?" "A man she was seeing." "He's married," he sighed. "She's got nowhere to go." My gut whispered, "Don't let her back." "Please," he said. "She has no one." Outside, snow was falling, soft, relentless. I went anyway. Margaret looked fragile under the hospital lights. When she saw me, she smiled faintly. "I knew you'd come." Her eyes were dull, but that faint glint, it wasn't guilt. It was victory. 2 days later, I came to collect my last few things. Mark met me at the door, pale and tired. I read the files on her laptop, he said. She'd been tracking you. Your emails, your posts, everything. And you let her? I didn't know it was this bad. I walked into our old bedroom. Freshly made, impersonal. On the nightstand lay our wedding photo, face down. I flipped it. Behind it was a sticky note. Every home has room for one mother. The problem is which woman keeps the door open. I handed it to him. She wasn't sick, Mark. She just needed to win. He looked lost. What are you going to do? Nothing. I'm done fighting ghosts. At the door, he asked, Do you still love me? I used to love you so much I forgot who I was. Not anymore. 3 weeks later, a package arrived. From Margaret Hensley. Inside, a small wooden box. Carved words, Don't let silence kill you. A handwritten note lay inside. Emily, you probably won't believe this, but when you came into Mark's life, I panicked. I didn't know how to love without controlling. Everything I did was out of fear of being left behind. If you're reading this, I'm likely gone. Don't live the way I did, clutching love until it breaks. I'm sorry. Moments later, Mark texted, Mom passed away this morning. She wanted you to have that box. I stared out the window. Snow kept falling soft as ash. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. Just a quiet sadness, the kind that comes when you finally realize the fire is out, and all that's left is smoke. At her grave, Mark stood silent, holding white daisies. I placed a sprig of lavender, her favorite. He whispered, I don't know what to say. You don't have to, I said. We both understand now. He nodded. She only knew how to love the wrong way. And we let her define how we loved each other, I replied. We parted without tears. No blame, no hugs, just peace. Two people finally admitting that some endings are merciful. I moved to Gloucester, a small apartment overlooking the sea. Fog rolled in each morning like a slow-moving ghost. I started writing again, stories about women who lost themselves trying to keep someone else whole. One evening, an email from Mark. I'm learning how to live alone. Thank you for showing me where I went wrong. I didn't respond. Instead, I stepped onto the balcony, breathing in salt air that burned clean through my lungs. Later that night, I opened a new document and typed the title, The Room That Wasn't Mine. For the first time, I was writing for no one but myself. That night, I turned off the lights early. No TV noise. No footsteps in the hall. I lay in the middle of the bed, my bed, wrapped in lavender-scented sheets. Moonlight spilled across the floor like silk. I thought of Margaret, her fear disguised as control. Of Mark, a good man who couldn't stand up. And of me, the woman who thought love meant surrender. Now I knew love isn't about sharing a room. It's about giving each other peace. I closed my eyes. For the first time in months, I slept, deeply, quietly, completely.